when I think about base rates, it reminds me of kind of the whole premise of thinking in bets, which is that, you know, and it really brought to life the idea of asking someone want to bet, right? Like the fact that we think of that, these beliefs, we have these ideas that we think are so certain and we're so confident I'm going to hire someone, they're going to be the best, is really just thinking about everything in life as a bet and challenging yourself to put certainties around things, even mundane, silly decisions, kind of the best way to rewire how this all works in your head.
Oh, I think so, absolutely. So here's the thing, when I say to you want to bet, all I'm doing is making you examine the assumptions that are going into your statement.
Yeah, one for my wife and I is always just like remembering something. I'm like, oh, I'm totally sure that uh our daughter's preschool is starting next week. And like,
Right. Do you want to
and then
bet?
my wife didn't ask that, but if she had, I would have been like, well, like, I don't know if I want to put all my money on the line.
Right. Because what it makes you think about is like there's a couple things. Well, what does the person who's betting me know that I don't know? So in some sense, when I say want to bet, I'm acting a little bit as a coach to you. Because I'm telling you that I have a perspective that is different from yours. If I'm willing to bet, that means that I'm saying that I believe something different than you. Okay, so it's automatically making you start to think like, well, what's a different way to look at this, right? Um, and then you have to start examining, like, well, exactly how sure am I of this? Like, so this is, my husband and I talk like this all the time, right? Where uh, generally where it is like, well, what's the price? That's what we end up doing, which is just a way to say what's the probability, right? So we don't think about bets as just like dollar for dollar. Like he might say that, he's let's say that it's an election, right? And you say, I live in Pennsylvania. So let's say you say, like, I'm sure John Fetterman's going to win the election, and someone says, want to bet. Um, they might, you could immediately say yes, but then the response would be, well, what's the price? Are you willing to lay me a price? Are you giving me a price? So, in other words, like, as an example, if I say to you, I'll bet $10 for every dollar that you bet, I'm telling you that I'm very certain
Yeah.
that I'm right because I'm risking a lot compared to what I can win. But if I say no, 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 right? So the implied thing is like if I say I'm 90% sure of something, I should be willing to lay you 9 to 1, $9 for every one, right? But as soon as I'm like, what? When you say, okay, I'll take the 9 to 1, and I go, wait, no, 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 like even money. Then what I'm saying actually I think it's 50-50, and I wasn't really thinking about it. So it's like a good way to kind of be like interacting. And I can tell you that I do this with little things and big things and whatever. It's actually kind of fun. Once you start like, well, what price do you want to lay? And we always bet $1.
Okay.
It's really
Okay.
fun. So, but I think that the thing that's really important about the betting, and this is so crucial to good decision making, is that it forces you to make the things that are implicit in the decision you're making explicit. Okay. So, as an example, the simplest example is one of the things that is always implicit in a decision you're making is your forecast of the probability of different things occurring. In other words, whether you know it or not, base rates are part of the decision making. So when I say to you, I'm going to meet you for dinner at 7 o'clock and I promise I'll be on time, and you say, want to bet, implied in that is that I must have a tendency to be late. And the question is, how much of a tendency do I have to be late? And how willing am I to say to you, yes, I'll bet you that I'm going to be on time. Right. So when I say things like that and then you bet back, those are all things that have to do with base rates. Right. You could say something like, I know the stock market is going to go up this year. Well, that's a prediction of the future. And if I know the base rates, I may bet you on that, depending on what you're willing to lay me, right? Because the stock market goes up actually somewhere between, like, it depends on how you measure it, 65 and 75% of the years. It will go up. So if you say I'm 100% sure it's going to go up this year, I might bet you. Because now what I'm doing,
I would take that bet because there are actually options out there I could use to arbitrage your confidence.
that is true. That is very true. Um, but I'm not involved in the arbitrage. So you can hedge away. I'm just going to take my bet. And then maybe I'll hedge it as well. Um, but the point being that, you know, when somebody says want to bet, it's like when you say, I think this person I'm going to hire is going to work out 90% of the time. And I bet you, it makes you actually go through and start thinking, well, wait a minute, why do I believe that? Remember, one of the things that we want to do in order to improve decision making is to start thinking about what's the quality of the beliefs that we have that go into any decision that we're making. And part of that is making the implicit explicit. And this is one of the things that's so incredibly important. I mean, even talking about a hiring example where like you send out to a bunch of people, like, what do you think the job description should be? What do you think the person, if you were describing them to a recruiter, and you're getting that all independently, right? What you're finding out is in an explicit way, when they would otherwise just go and interview somebody, what are the things that they think are important for filling this role? And now you've made that explicit in a way that you can, first of all, examine it, which is incredibly important, right? We have to be able to examine our decisions. Um, and that means that we have to actually make all this stuff that's sort of in our gut explicit in a way where you can examine it like an object. You can walk around it. You can have discussions about it. I can see that you have a different perspective. And when we see that we have a dispersion of opinion, we can sort of dive into that dispersion to see where the gaps are, to see why you believe something different about the world than I do. And this is the way that we start to learn really fast. It's the way that we start to get our decisions to be much more accurate.